to another episode of Horror Stories from the Internet. This time we are reviewing a Sonic.exe Spinpasta called Anti-Sonic.dll. Now, I will say this is a creepypasta I grew up with and stuff, so let's see if it still holds up to me, or maybe it would be more flawed than how I remembered it, or what is this Anti-Sonic. Then I remembered it? What is this Anti-Sonic.dll, and what will this story go for? Well, sit back and relax as I read and review this pretty long creepypasta. The following text is a transcript and summary of a downloadable audio file found on a website that was said to be available to the public for the course of 3 days, before being taken down by an unknown cause. Any trace of the site has been removed entirely. This has naturally led to extreme doubt and near instant dismissal at first that the site simply never existed. However, upon hearing the file's contents, the possibility of a missing persons was raised, as well as certain other curiosities. The file is an MP3 file that contains an audio recording featuring almost 26 minutes of a narration of an individual apparently named Chris Lawrence. The very nature of what he speaks out of throughout this recording seems extremely detached from reality, as if he was experiencing intense hallucinations. Topics mentioned are regarding one such Sonic.exe, including a detailed description about how it inflicts damage and or some kind of influence on certain individuals' minds. Yet, with the exception of one particular section regarding a statement about the deaths of several people, the narrator seems almost calm and collected. There are no signs of psychotic breakdown or any kind of high stress levels in his voice. The exception mentioned involves the narrator becoming angry on the subject of fan-made creations being both responsible for people's deaths as well as falling victims themselves. Throughout the recording can be heard several ambient noises of a disturbing nature, suspected of being placed in order to mask the location of the individuals. These sounds are also very convincingly mixed in to give the impression they are moving around in the distance. Authorities have currently ceased any and all investigation into this matter, as it is now officially considered to be a cold case with too many uncertainties and no solid evidence. One other file was received along with the MP3, a .pdf file that was at first believed to be corrupted, until an analysis showed it was an encrypted image that needed to be rearranged somehow, but only just over 65% of it was corrupted beyond recovery. After putting together what was salvageable, the result was a bizarrely fragmented image containing what is believed to be the narrator himself, along with several of his personal details. Both are largely obscured due to the corrupted sections that, after assembly, that clearly spell the words, "I'm listening," presented in all caps and with a pixelated mixture of crimson, black, blue, and red. What can be made of the individual's details includes the majority of his name, along with 11 stray letters of various details such as address, date of birth, and occupation. The other noteworthy detail of these stray letters is that they spell the words "stop killing" and are also placed in the right order. Littered throughout the overlaying sentence, this occurrence, whatever managed to corrupt the image, was unsuccessful in covering those specific details. the individual appears to be of average height and build, standing straight with long blonde hair just past shoulder length. His face cannot be seen due to that part of the image being corrupted. He is wearing what looks to be nothing more than a simple set of jeans and a midnight blue shirt underneath a black hoodie top, carrying what is questionably a set of firearms, consisting of what can be recognized as an IMI Desert Eagle on the right hip, a Glock 17s on the left, and both a Remington 870 pump action shotgun and a Heckler and Koch XM8 assault rifle on his back. Each firearm has a strange visual effect of being covered in some kind of dense, swirling fog. The fog itself is a mixture of gray, black, purple, and teal. It is wrapped tightly around the shape of the firearms. Strangely, though, no holsters are present for this equipment. Also are two other unidentified items attached to the other side of both his legs. Whether these are weapons or not is uncertain, as there is too much of the image obscured to tell. Very little else can be said about this image, other than what can be made out as a background behind him. It suggests scenery that was either visually altered in several ways, resulting in a series of twisted and disturbing shapes that are colored with a blur of black, mauve, and various shades of blue that share no similarity to any scenery currently known in the world. Certain factors, such as the date of upload, details of any location allegedly involved, as well as both the name and other contents, will not be included to prevent investigation from any further outside source. The recording begins with a sound that resembles an audio jack being plugged into an unstable or defective socket of some kind, before switching to an ambience of what has a resemblance to both howling and cries of pain that upon first impressions have been tweaked with audio software and is at a low volume. After approximately 3 seconds, there is the voice of a male with a British accent, estimated to be in his mid to late 20s.
My name is Chris Lawrence, and I have a warning for anyone who is now hearing this. Whether you like horror or not, you better hear this. You need to know. And if you were involved with what has caused more damage than you could imagine, that means fanfics, artwork, and constant attention to something that was never meant to be messed around with. You have a lot to answer for. You just love playing around with these concepts like other popular things turned into memes that you feel you can just take in order to help it grow for your own sick little No point in going there until you know why I'm here and what I'm talking about. I never imagined doing something like, I don't know, a podcast or whatever you want to call this thing. I don't want anything other than some of your time, if that's okay. If that's okay with you. The pieces of the picture I'm here to tell you about are pretty big within themselves, but hopefully you'll just see it's all bad. In the end, I just want you to listen more than anything. I'd best get to the point, right? Before I confuse you any further, you could say this all began when I was checking some stuff on YouTube one night. I was watching some top 10 video on creepy moments in video games after seeing this one game in particular. I got a bit curious. Well, I say curious, but I'm pretty sure at this point I was actually controlled on some level. I'm not sure that's how it works. I guess you could say I have my own reasons for regretting the day I heard the name Sonic.exe, or anything about it for that matter. Even then, I don't actually think regret would be my word of choice. So if anyone just stopped listening, fine. Maybe it's nice to stay ignorant. That is, until they might come across any kind of problems. But to anyone who's still here, you want to hear what I have to say? If you really want to know about this, and if you'll just understand or even believe that I'm trying to stop what follows in this thing's wake for real, then you will stay the hell away from it. That's a lot to wrap around your head. I don't even know where to begin. I guess carrying on about how I first exposed myself or got exposed would be a good start. So I mentioned a list of creepy stuff in games, and this had me interested. I heard a couple of things about what it was, and some research followed. Research usually leads to something with a download link, but like I said, this was more than just fascination. It was being compelled without knowing it. And the more I think of it, the more I'm certain I was being called to since I first saw him. All that aside for a second, I succeeded in getting the game and went through it. The version I got was just a replication of the original though. Extra stuff in it, but most importantly, it wasn't the actual thing. Now, if by chance you haven't seen what this thing is, it's basically the first Sonic game, if it was done by Wes Craven on an especially bad day. I gotta say, as freaky as it must be for most people that don't have a stomach for horror, and maybe even a few that do, it couldn't go unexplored forever.
Violence is everywhere.
You look and all that, am I right? Seeing the characters after they were caught is what I remember most clearly. That and the face at the end. But there were a couple of details that were a little off from what I saw in any video. It's easy to say there was something about the eyes, but in this case, there really was something about the eyes. The pupils. They were darker than I saw beforehand. And I wasn't my monitor, and that wasn't my monitor, but the really weird part was when I must have looked away for a second, then back again. This time, they were really bright, and it made his eyes look bigger. Yeah, oh yeah, there was one other thing to mention. No feeling of fear, only interest. I obviously thought nothing of it back then, but now that I've had time to look back on all these points where I should have been afraid, it's amazing how much of an effect it has and how much attention you don't pay. I felt I just had to find out anything else. I could about it. Anything else I could about it. I wanted to find the original version. Didn't even know why. I do now, of course. But at the time, like I said, totally oblivious. But there was something in that moment that definitely signified things were really starting. Shortly after that, Steam told me that someone named Gamma had added me as a friend. Curiously, curiosity got me, of course. I opened the chat to say hi, but without anything saying they were typing, they said hi first, and this person knew my name. I did feel a bit weirded out by that. I mean, it could have just been someone I already knew found me on here, but I just played through the game, so I already had far-fetched ideas going through my head. I asked them how they knew me, and the response was a little strange at the least. At the most, it was just detached and insane. This person started going on about how I'd caught his attention, and they wanted to take me back to the beginning. It stopped soon after that, but I had the life scared out of me by laughter coming through my headphones. It was loud. It made me smack them off my head. And yeah, it was the same laughter I heard in the game. I checked to see if it was still up. Nothing was there. Then something came up in the chat that caught my eye again. The words, "Gamma is now deceased." Yep, you did just hear that from me. It might be that I haven't paid much attention, but I'm pretty sure Steam doesn't show that one. It gets better though. It switched to "Gamma is now mine." A link came up that just said the beginning. I didn't click on it, but my PC just started downloading the game anyway, and it wouldn't cancel. Kind of makes me wonder what the point of the link was, if it just did that. Anyway, it was done in a few seconds, and got put on the desktop in even less time, and then, except for the chat window and a brand new desktop icon, nothing I would have believed this was someone who's good with coding and able to play a not so funny joke on me. But after everything else, you know what I was thinking. You're probably thinking it too. Well, we both got proven right, very quickly. The screen went dead, and I heard something like scratching. The slice marks started etching themselves into the screen. No, not a vid or anything. I mean, actual scratches. My monitor was being ripped up in front of me. The screen was getting twisted up where it was cut. It was buckling and curling outwards, and underneath was something that looked like the living tissue. There were words appearing, but I also heard something over the sound of the screen being destroyed. It was coming from my headphones. Like a genius, I grabbed them to listen in. It was like several screams at once, only they were really distorted. Quiet at first, but clearly getting louder. As more of it appeared, I was hearing stuff from somewhere really nasty. Heard that laughter again. A lot louder than before. Pretty much deafening, actually. Only this time, it didn't come from the PC. It was more like something behind me, and then complete silence. When it stopped, the words in all caps, saying, "I'm listening." My brain had a hard time with all of it at first. I dropped the headphones and checked outside the door, only to see nothing there. Not only that, but when I looked back at my monitor, nothing. No scratches, just a blank screen. Now this is what got me thinking about the whole control thing to begin with. And I still wouldn't know if it wasn't pointed out to me. I doubted my own sanity. But only for a few moments. After that, I didn't have any problems with going near the PC. Even after what I just witnessed, There was no fear towards it, but no curiosity this time. Didn't seem important back then, of course, but I should probably mention it now. Anyway, the PC was still running. The monitor was just fine. First thing I did was check Steam. No one named Gamma or anything saying I ever met them, except for the new game I had. Everything looked normal again. I do remember it having a new icon though. Just those eyes with the blood trickling down underneath. Quite a sharp resolution too. I kept thinking on and off that I just imagined all of it. No one else in the house was kicking my door off its hinges. Sorry there. Because of the noise. But believe me, it felt so real. In the end, I was still unsure. But then I stopped thinking about that because a very strange feeling started creeping up on me. It was like I wanted to sleep, but not because I was tired. It was more a sense of just not wanting to be awake anymore. No kind of depression or anything, but I just didn't feel like me. I just fell asleep like that. It didn't happen. Shouldn't have. I was shown the events of the game again, and it was almost exactly the same. One thing was changed, the look. There was almost nothing cartoony about it. Everything looked so grim and real. Imagine someone putting all these characters in places through Photoshop or something, and making them just a bit off from a human's height. Seeing them from that perspective for the first time, you've seen them in games, but in the flesh as it were, the eyes were still almost as big, though, so you might have found it a bit creepy. Some probably wouldn't even care about its Sonic, because it's Sonic. Okay, some probably wouldn't even care because it's Sonic, but I cared, and I wanted to stop it, but couldn't on account of being locked in a room, being made to watch through a window. I never did get shown what he did to those poor guys. I only heard the screams and then static. I should point out they weren't the screams you get in the game. They were fitting for each character. What I did get after all of it though was that freak busting through the window after he was done, growling something about suffering being a part of who I am. Can't remember the exact words. Although the words I do remember was him yelling at me to wake up. I did just that in one hell of a hurry. Didn't even get much sleep, as I was sitting on the edge of my bed. I could have sworn I was still dreaming when I saw that what was on my monitor, but I wasn't. Unfortunately, it looked like a video clip of the freak, but he looked as real as he was in the dream. His eyes were completely fixated on me. Also, seeing as you know who I'm talking about, let's go with a pet name like Freakazoid. I'll come up with something demeaning for him later, but you don't really have a clue who or what he is, but you know what he looks like. You may think you know what he does, but you don't. You really don't. It was a dark background, so I could barely see anything other than him. But I could just make out something like a crimson sky. and there were some kind of shapes dancing and twisting around in the distance, like they were something that was alive. After a few seconds, I realized this wasn't a video clip. No loop. Freakazoid was actually staring at me with a toned down smile on his face. That feeling hit me again. Not only this time, it was more like needing to do just one more thing before you go to sleep. You know, like 5 more minutes on a game or one more vid to watch. I actually felt I needed to get to him. No trace of common sense at all. The desktop came up by itself, but the background was still the same until he started looking at the game. The screen went a bit strange after that, giving a split second of red static here and there. The mouse cursor flew about all over the screen as well. It all stopped at the cursor being right next to the icon. My hand just went to the headphones, then the keyboard and mouse. I clicked on it. It was just like before. Without the updated look, the music, scenery, murders, and the words, the characters, and the way they got locked out when they died. There was just one small detail you might want to know about. My hands were stuck to the keyboard and mouse. And no, I don't mean I needed to keep my hands on them. I mean, I tried to remove them, and it was like everything was stuck to the desk. Except that I was able to slide the mouse around. I played through to the end, seeing the same ending. 3 rounds of static, followed by that laughing. Then there was another round of static. The picture stayed the same, but now it said, "What are you?" Yet another round of static, and right, okay, I don't know if this even is going to work, and don't ask me how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it.
Audio undergoes a second of strange interference before cutting to approximately a half a second of static. The transition is followed by what can be heard as wind blowing, as if the recording was made in an outside environment. This consistently remains for the rest of the segment. 4 seconds in, there is the voice of a male with a slightly diluted American accent. Male's voice would appear to be a heavily modified voiceover, including a substantially low tone from a pitch shifter. However, there was no sign of tampering of any kind throughout, except for the beginning and end of the segment, visible or otherwise. First visible sign of tampering throughout the entire recording to this point, implying a crude yet unknown transition from the recording to the current segment. Indications show that the segment was placed into the recording during the process itself, without the aid of another audio device.
Having fun? I hope so. I hope you enjoyed watching all those sealed fates, and you knew they were sealed. You knew what was going to happen to them, and yet you just watched. Although you did more than just watch, didn't you? You took control of them. Let There's something about you. Something I can see. I wish to take a closer look at you. Let's talk private, shall we?
Background effects are added and is what appears to be a modified sound clip of screaming in a room that carries an echo. This loops throughout the rest of the segment. Several more screens are introduced into the background, all of which have been determined to as a mixture of clips that have been traced to several sound archives, TV shows, videos from such sites as YouTube and video games. A high-powered and device of some kind is heard charging up. This particular effect has a strong tremolo effect mixed in, but does not share any kind of resemblance to any known device or form of media. The audio cuts back with the same transition described at the beginning of this current segment.
Okay, what you hopefully just heard, that was his voice. What he said to me. I know what I know. It doesn't really add up that I have that to show you, but I did just show you, I hope. What happened after was, well, all I really remember is the screen flashing and hurting my eyes, but he was moving with every second of it. The last time I remembered was a shot of his whole body, standing straight with his arms stretched out in front, and he had the same look on his face from before. Then everything, and I mean my actual vision, went completely red, then to black. Next thing I knew, I woke up. Well, let's just say somewhere else. I can't tell you because I don't know. Quite a few things have happened since then. My own adventures through this, but I've already driveled on for what must be about half an hour now. Besides, there's another important part you need to hear. I don't know how long this has passed, but since I first got into whatever this is, but the things I've seen, you don't know what this place was, what this place is. If it's just a dream, or if I'm hallucinating, or in reality, I'm strapped down to a bed in a mental hospital or something, or indeed, this is some kind of place beyond your imagination or your nightmares. I know it sounds completely insane what I'm saying, but I don't know what else to say. I would try explaining how things work and the sights you get here. But I don't think I have the words to describe that. I can tell you something I have seen though. Bodies, a lot of brutality and murder. There's been characters either from the games or I'm guessing made by any of you since I don't recognize any of them. They get chased down before they just disappear. Until he's done with them, and then there's the human victims that he chooses. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Real people here. These people went through the same thing as me. Only they weren't so lucky. They didn't have what I've got, and they weren't saved and given a chance to earn to even survive, much less fight back. And it's your fault. Yes, you keep conjuring up these little pieces of fiction, artwork, and further proof of its existence. that a place like this exists. All of those characters you keep cheating, you keep creating, they get about 5 minutes of life in this hellhole before their remains, as well as the people who chose to be dragged in here, get left for me, and others to find. And you continue to just bury us in this. And if you say, but I played it and nothing happened, then he found you lacking. He not worth his attention. Why do you have to give him the reign of terror that he has? Why can't you draw him getting his face kicked in for a change? Why don't you just give a break? Give us a break already. You have to stop indulging this thing's power. Believe me, once again, I know it's completely insane what I'm saying, and the little evidence I have of words and an apparent recording I'm not even sure you got to hear isn't much to go on. I shouldn't imagine you'd even question how I got that. I just have to have it. That's all I've got for you. But you've listened to this point, then there must be some part of you that's convinced that whatever all this started off as, it must have grown, it's evolved, and it's refined itself, even though you wouldn't know from looking at this place, either that or it's always been here. It just needed something to give it a shape. I don't know. Something I am sure of, though, is also the reason I'm doing this. And it's that I'm here to tell you have to stop feeding him. If not for our sake or the sake of anyone else here, then for your own. I can't say what he looks for when he goes after someone. He's very picky, leaving so many alone. Just there will always be those few people that spark his interest. If you believe me, then I'll make you a deal. If you leave this thing alone, then we'll fight this in peace and stop it from spreading.
The following segment is mostly inaudible due to unexpected interference mixed with a distorted scream that resides for approximately 4 seconds. The sound clip has been cut up and rearranged. What follows is patches of static that continue until the end of the recording. One of two other notable points is the sudden presence two distinctively different voices. The sudden presence of two distinctively different voices. This is the most likely explanation for the transition between tenses I and we. The second voice that of a male that of a male of it with an American accent. Second point is what appears to be distorted cries making their way from the distance of what is assumed to be the narrator's location, as well as the low presence of a deep-toned male's laughter. The voice has a resemblance to that of the individual heard in an earlier segment. Second visible sign of tampering throughout the entire recording indicates what has been determined as a powerful type of jamming signal, theoretically designed to overwhelm the output of any electrical device. The result seems to be that it renders the device inoperable. The evidence suggests there is a delay between the signal's impact and its effect. All known jamming tech available does not possess the specific properties of this signal. Narrator unknown. Narrator unknown. Narrator unknown. The static continues with what can be heard as several yet unidentified creatures, followed what is believed to be gunfire from at least 5 different sources, accompanied by shouting from the narrators, along with 3 extra voices. The first 2 are American accents, belonging to both a female and a male. The third is that of another British male. There are also sounds implying further use of tools that cause projectiles, or some kind of lethal force that with high impact. Whether these tools are weapons cannot be determined, although it is likely all mentioned factors take place over approximately the last 8 seconds. Unknown. Narrator. Unknown number 3. Narrator. A struggle takes place between the narrator and what is believed to be one of the apparent creatures from which the cries originated from. The gunfire continues, almost remaining consistent throughout. The recording ends with the sound in the opening description. Only it is now more like the jack being removed. Based on the loose assumption that this is not a mere hoax, it is unknown whether or not the persons responsible for this file's upload survived the incident. File has been all but dismissed as a hoax due to lack of concrete evidence, including such elements as the sound clips found in already existing forms of media. also noted is that there is or never has been anyone by the name of Chris Lawrence or any individual having his personal details filed under missing persons. Neither has there been anyone having taken up residence or even connected to anywhere near the area of alleged disappearance. To prove this further, locals in the area connected claim to have never heard of such a person. Hi, everyone. So that was Anti-Sonic.dll. My. Alright, so despite some of its flaws, in my opinion, this still holds up pretty goddamn well. I still really love this creepypasta. Honestly, I love the fucking interpretation of X in this creepypasta, of how, like, he's interpreted as more of a cosmic horror that, like, people know what he looks like, but nobody knows what he actually does, and to, like, fucking mess with people and shit, and, like, also what his intentions are, and all that's known is that in this story, in this story's interpretation, all his intentions so far that are known is that he's more interested in wanting to mess with people that he finds the most interesting in his opinion, and other stuff. And how he's interpreted as sort of like a picky cosmic horror that only likes to mess with the victims that he considers, that he finds a lot more interesting than like generic ones that he considers lacking. Honestly, the whole concept of the Spinpasta itself was all very, very well executed, and honestly, by far, this is my most favorite Sonic.exe Spinpasta so far. And I mean so far. I never checked out other, like, Sonic.exe Spinpastas. I will say that the only other Sonic.exe Spinpastas I've checked out are only Sally.exe and this one, which I've just revisited. But I have seen other Sonic.exe Spinpastas before that I have intentions of checking out and reviewing in the future, so keep your eyes up to that. Anyways, I also really enjoyed on how X/Sonic.exe was interpreted in this creepypasta, Spinpasta 2, like how I mentioned earlier. Another thing I should note is this Spinpasta has been made before the existence of the official sequel of Sonic.exe 2 or whatever. Like the official sequel of Sonic.exe. That was like simply called Sonic.exe 2 or whatever, but I'm not sure. It was called like Sonic.exe Round 2 or Ready for Round 2. I keep forgetting the name of that sequel, because it's been a while since I've revisited that creepypasta. I've only like seen one or two videos checking out the sequel for Sonic.exe, being the original haunted gaming review of the sequel and some other video that I forgot. But yeah. Anyways, this creepypasta was made before the official sequel of Sonic.exe. Basically, before Sonic.exe's real name was confirmed to be X, and the entire like Sonic.exe lore. And I really love how the creator of the story kind of gets creative with this story of Sonic.exe's real name being unknown, with like how the character Chris Lawrence starts referring to the file X is connected to as Sonic.exe, while Chris himself refers to X by the nickname Freakazoid. And honestly, I still think this pasta holds up, despite some flaws it may have. In fact, in my opinion, it doesn't have that very many flaws. It just only has like a few grammar issues, like a tiny bit of grammar issues, and that's it. But yeah, and I really like how the pasta itself is written out like it's like some sort of like investigative article into investigating this weird audio file that was like rumored to be up in public for anyone to listen to from a mysterious website for about like a certain amount of time before the site itself was like closed down and stuff for unknown reasons. And honestly, okay, so of course, and I will also have to say it may have, and I will say that it does use cliches in this creepypasta because of course it's a Spinpasta of Sonic.exe, but it actually takes those cliches and executes them pretty well in my opinion in this story. I really like it how like it executes them and stuff, and honestly so yeah, so of course, okay, but the difference between Sonic.exe and Anti-Sonic.dll is basically Anti-Sonic.dll executed the cliches used in this very well instead of having them there for the sake of being there, like how the original Sonic.exe did. Honestly, I really enjoyed reading this classic again, and honestly, I consider this a classic, and I do not like how, like, not that very many people talk about this Spinpasta. I only, like, sure, I mean, there are a few reviews on Anti-Sonic.dll, just, one being Mudahar's Haunted Gaming, and the other being the one that I kind of forgot about, but just remembered. It was actually a stream of somebody reading Anti-Sonic.dll and giving their thoughts to it at the end. And, yeah. And, anyways, all I gotta say is that, this is all for this episode. That's all my thoughts for this creepypasta in this episode of Horror Stories from the Internet. If you have any suggestions for what creepypastas I should review next, let me know in the comments below. And if you have any creepypastas you want to share that you created, you can check out my currently not so active forum site for the creepypastas category, to share your own written works for possibly me to read and review in the future. And while I do not have a wiki for fans to share and create their own creepypastas yet, I do have plans for making a wiki or multiple wikis or a wiki and a backup wiki for this stuff in the future. But yeah, this is Wonder Hellblazer, and I'll see you all later in the next episode.